If you watched last week's show, I talked about Dr. John Lawrence and I talked about methylene blue, and I promised you more information. Oh, I brought it. On this episode, you're going to hear about, it almost sounds too good to be true. Honestly, at one point I had to step back in the episode and say, wait a minute, this sounds too good to be true. What the heck? Where has this stuff been? Right? With a current virus that everyone's worried about, and just so many things, even dementia. So many things. You just wait till you see the show. Wait till you see the video, because I went to California just to get this done. Not just me, but other big names in our space have went for the exact same treatment. So check out this episode of Cell TV. I want to give thanks to one of our sponsors, CytoDefend. Look, at a time like this, I think that our immune system and keeping our immune system up right now is more important than ever. I can also tell you that I pay attention to the things that keep my immune system on par and healthy. So glad that CytoDefend is one of our sponsors here on Cell TV. And it's a product that I use, my family uses, and hopefully you'll check it out. And by the way, you can check it out with the link right here below. If you want to try a free bottle, you can actually get a free bottle, just pay the shipping. And I think you'll reorder after that, but check it out.
If you're listening to this podcast and want to access the amazing CytoDefend product Dr. Pompa just mentioned, please visit freeimmunity.com. Again, that's freeimmunity.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cellular Healing TV. I'm Ashley Smith, and today we are talking all about methylene blue. We are welcoming expert Dr. Yoshi, who will cover IV methylene blue as well as other therapies. And you'll learn what they are for and why learning about this important support can change your health for the better. I can't wait to hear more. So let's get started and welcome Dr. Yoshi and, of course, Dr. Pompa. Welcome, both of you.
Hi, thank you.
I was commenting on your background compared to mine. I have about 1.5 feet of snow out here, and look at you in California.
SoCal.
Well, listen, I had an incredible experience at your office with what we're going to talk about, which I used to call ozone dialysis, which we're going to actually see a video of that, my wife being on the machine. So a picture or a video does it way more justice. You call it the OD Energizer, but because you do something very unique in this treatment. I think this treatment is absolutely groundbreaking, and I really wanted to share it on Cell TV. But there's a part of this treatment that last week, if you didn't see it, folks, we interviewed Dr. John Lawrence, and we talked about methylene blue. All right, you know a lot about it, and I said that we were going to expand on this in another show. As promised, it is this episode. And you add this methylene blue to all these amazing IVs of ozone, moving the blood out, filtering it, bringing it through UV, a little bit of red light to activate the methylene blue, all in one treatment. And like I said, you're going to have to see the video, which I will show you here because I took it when I was at your office. But this particular process, my wife said, she felt it more than anything we've ever done. And that's really why I wanted to share the process and how you put it together. And you're welcome to share all the things you do in your office, because I think a lot of people would travel there to see you. You do a lot of incredible regenerative medicine. I know that you've had other superstars in our industry, without naming names, come to the office. Maybe they don't mind. I don't know if they did a show, if they did something public, then you're welcome to share who they are. But they've come to your office as well, just for this procedure. So that's why another reason why I'm excited to share about it. Well, look, I have to say, you had an incredible office, incredible staff, and you're doing incredible things. But on this topic, how did you get there? How did you get here? What interested you in this? And then we'll kind of start to show and explain it.
Yeah, first I want to just say thank you, Dr. Pompa. I've been a fan of your podcast for many years, so I've learned a lot from you, and I just want to say thank you for what you're doing for the world and just how you're contributing to our industry, to the healing industry. Also got to just shout out to my amazing office staff.
Oh, they're amazing.
Dr. Ann Kuo, Kelly Cal, those are the two, along with myself, are the two who see one-on-ones. But our whole staff is just amazing. And,
Incredible.
I stand on the shoulders of giants, I say. I've learned from other giants in the industry, but each one of those people in my office is a little giant in and of themselves. And they really allow me to do what I do, and to tinker with things and come up with some crazy contraption like what we're going to be talking about today. So I just wanted to throw that out there because it's super important for them to get recognized.
Absolutely.
And yeah, my kind of hero's journey, if you will, I actually have pretty good health, but my younger brother, he actually had meningitis when he was a baby, and then had seizures for the rest of his life until he passed away. So I was always interested in the neurological system. That's why I majored in animal physiology and neuroscience in college and went to medical school. And then my mom has had chronic Lyme disease for 40 years. And my dad actually passed away from ALS. So there's a lot of this just neurologic confusion. And so that's how I got into functional medicine, really, at the end of the day. And that's why I've always been interested, especially on the neurological side, which, we do a lot with.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to get into the methylene blue, which we touched on in last week's episode, in a moment. But explain the OD energizer. Some call it EBOO, EBOO, and some call it ozone dialysis, which is what I was calling it. I guess you kind of like the OD energizer because you've done other things. I mean, you really have. I mean, I think it's extraordinary procedure. But so let's start there. Explain that procedure first, and then we'll move into the methylene blue that you've added to it.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. It is often referred to as EBOO or ozone dialysis. We call it O3D energizer dialysis. And that's because there's three main pillars to the process. Now there's other little kind of secret sauce healing juices that we put in, like hydrogen tablets and C minerals and NAD and et cetera, et cetera. However, the three main pillars to this O3D energizer are really ozone dialysis, or EBOO, which I think is kind of the creme de la creme version of ozone therapy. There's a lot of beautiful, wonderful versions of ozone therapy, but I think this is, in my opinion, is the creme de la creme. And then we add on an amazing light therapy as number two, and then we add in the methylene blue. And so it's those three that really form the pillars.
Yeah, and as you said, afterwards you gave me a shot, my wife and I, a shot of NAD plus, and also B12, as I recall, and that's for a reason, I think. And then also, like I said, the red light therapy, the UV therapy, which activates the methylene blue, which we'll explain in a minute. I actually I'm going to show a video right now of that procedure because, again, a video does it so much more justice of what's going on, and then I'll let you comment in a second. So check this video out. All right, Mare, just started, so I can't ask you how you feel yet, but tell us what's going on.
I actually felt like maybe it's just because this arm is my weird arm, but actually, like up where my arm inserts, I actually could feel like a tension, I would say.
When it started.
Right.
So tell us what's going on.
So we are removing blood from this arm. It's going through the system here through this filter where it's getting ozonated and filtering out inflammatory proteins and returning that.
So inflammatory proteins like cytokines or other
beta-2 microglobulins, things like that. And that filtered ozonated blood is being returned
in that
arm.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And what's the device called?
It's we call it ozone dialysis, or O3D for short.
Yeah, that's what I call it as well. Yeah, awesome. And Mary, you've had this done one other time.
I said I felt the very best I had ever felt in such a long time for 3 straight days.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize that I needed to feel better.
Yeah,
I just was like, wow. So, yep.
And I know the toxins actually build up, right? I mean, you see a protein build up in that Is it that?
in this container.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that will fill, correct?
On average, we see around 200 milliliters. So
Okay.
it doesn't fill completely.
And
but
it's just bad proteins. What else is in
yeah,
there?
just cell debris,
Cell debris.
things like that.
Is that part of the reason why people feel better, you think? Because it is, not just putting ozone in, but there is a detox effect happening?
Right. I feel like that with this, people don't have that Herxheimer's effect because of this filtration part.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Thank you. Well, I have to say, you can see your nurse practitioner there did an amazing job of explaining that. And you can see my wife sitting there, how that it was coming in one side and going out the other, the blood that is, and then being ozonated, but seeing the procedure. Any other comments on that?
Yeah, the ozone dialysis portion of it, or the EBU portion of it, really it's that filter is amazing because it's creating a huge surface area for the red blood cells to kind of cross the ozone oxygen mixture. So they're just brushing edges. And again, it's this huge surface area. So I think that's why it's the creme de la creme of ozone therapy, because we're able to get more ozone into the body than any other form of ozone therapy, but at a nice, gentle, lower gamma. And, in terms of that, filter also does take some things off. Now, there's some debates between the practitioners that are doing this about what exactly is coming off. So we as a group have some hypotheses, but we're still learning about what exactly is coming off. There's probably some inflammatory proteins that are coming off. A little bit of B12 might be dialyzed out, which is why we give some back to you just to be sure.
Right.
And so it's taking some gunk, but again, inflammation mostly out of us. And I think that decreases the likelihood that people have a negative reaction or a Herxheimer's, a die-off type of reaction to this therapy. So that's the EBU portion. Or the
right. I was just going to say that
portion.
without the addition of the other things that we're going to talk about, who is this there, who is going to just thrive, from a therapy like this? You mentioned your mom, obviously. You could tell some stories here as well, because I asked you the same question in the clinic.
Yeah, I mean, so really my mother-in-law actually has idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, which for those of you who do not know, it's a continual slow scarring of the lungs until you either get a lung transplant or you just suffocate to death. And through the use of medications, but also stem cells and other regenerative therapies, we've been able to arrest this. Well, when the pandemic came, I said, what tool is not in my toolbox that might benefit my mother-in-law most? And so that's when I went out, learned the ozone dialysis portion of this. And since then, it has done, it took me a long time to figure out how to put this thing together, which was a joy in and of itself, truly. And great for my just overall learning. But the amount of people that this has helped over the last year plus has been phenomenal, especially for a certain virus that shall not be named. It's been phenomenal. It just raises the oxygen at the tissue level. So it's not just that it's raising oxygen during the treatment. You put a nasal cannula of oxygen on you and it'll raise your oxygen levels while you're getting the oxygen, right? But people can do this therapy, walk out of the office, and an hour, a day later, their oxygen is actually still higher than it was before.
Right.
And yeah.
I took a brain test, just to keep it simple, before and after. I mean, pretty intensive, actually. I sit there and had to respond to all kinds of little tests for my brain and speed. The one thing that did increase was my timing went way up, like faster. And I have to say, after it, I just had all this done. So I'm like, probably a bad test right now, because I was like, I don't know, I get this weird buzz from NAD, right? And I was kind of on the NAD buzz, But anyways, my reaction time actually did increase pretty dramatically. So
Yeah.
I'm going to redo the test. But go ahead.
And I'm just going to add in my own mother, because again, I test this on myself first and then family members before it gets out to patients. My own mother, after her first ozone dialysis treatment, had her best night's sleep that she had had since I was born, which was over 40 years ago. And so that just speaks to the power and potential of this therapy. I mean, you can imagine all the mechanisms of action, and we can get into that if you want, or if we have time after talking about methylene blue, but it's potent, it's powerful, huge healing.
Well, I mean, let's touch on it before, because I don't want people to confuse the therapies. Right now, we're talking about this, this amazing ozone therapy. I will say this, we said this, for at least 3 days, my wife and I just felt absolutely incredibly amazing. And we get a lot of things done. We are biohackers, and man, I cannot wait to do it again. I know there's, people that this works incredible with very serious conditions. And I hope people hear that. So talk a little bit about the mechanisms, because I think people out there with different conditions, infections, obviously, but brain related conditions, heart, lungs. I mean, there's so much that it really touches on. So go ahead.
Yeah. So one of the mechanisms of action is that a moderate dose of oxidation therapy, which ozone is an oxidation therapy, a moderate dose of that really upregulates NRF2, and that is which then upregulates the whole antioxidant response system. So we're talking about catalase and superoxide dismutase and heat shock protein and phase 2 liver metabolism. And so it's just upregulating all of those antioxidants, right? We can take supplements, or we can take our own body's endogenous production. And those all combat inflammation, which arguably is, or maybe not arguably, is the root of so much disease, right? And so that's probably one huge part of ozone, right? It also affects the immune system. Now, there's certain direct germicidal effects of it. The reality is, I don't think that that's a huge part of what ozone therapy does in the body. I think it's more that it balances out the whole cytokine response. And there's inflammatory cytokines, there's anti-inflammatory cytokines, there's hundreds of different cytokines, but ultimately balancing out the cytokine response just restores the immune system balance. So too much immune system is autoimmune condition, right? Too little is infection, right? So if you have an infection, we want to bring that ability to fight the infection. If we have an autoimmune situation, we actually want to reverse that and balance it out. Yeah. And then there's kind of what it does directly to the red blood cells, blood vessels, and it increases ATP, it increases NAD, it increases the flexibility of the red blood cells, it increases the ability of the red blood cell to offload the oxygen at the tissue level. So you can see it does a lot of stuff, and that's how it's able to affect, like name a disease or a condition, and chances are it can help in some way.
Yeah. All right. And then we take it to the next level of adding this methylene blue. I'm going to start with the video, because now you'll see this part of it. And here I am, and you actually did the narration here. But again, people would be like, that's why they call it methylene blue. So check out this video. Merrily, I didn't show you this part that we both got. All right, Doc, what's the blue stuff?
Methylene blue,
which we're talking about on this episode, but I have to show you what the process is. Explain the process.
So we have the blood coming out of the right arm through the machine, through the filter, getting filtered out. This is the ozonated blood here. And the ozonated blood basically joins up with this methylene blue before being lit up, ideally with the red light therapy. We have some red light therapy here. So right as the blood is going back into its body, it's getting lit up, activated with the red light.
Yeah, so why does the red light, or light it at all, why does that light up have an effect on the methylene blue?
Yeah, so the blue, basically it absorbs red light, which is approximately the spectrum from 600 to 675 nanometers. And that is literally what activates the methylene blue in the body to create an environment where your oxygen can actually transport into more ATP, more NAD, more energy. Those are our main energy molecules in the body.
Yeah, and Marilee, I didn't get to interview her after, but she said her brain turned on, clarity, even tingly. Doc, that's kind of what you felt with the methylene blue, correct?
Yes.
On top of this, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, well, this guy's doing cool stuff. We think the only clinic maybe in the world doing this combination, so really cool. Thanks. Just remember you kind of explained.
Right.
All right, yeah, so your further comments, but you can see, man, the stuff is actually blue. Let me say this as well. So afterwards, if you don't tell someone this might happen, they might be a little shocked, because you might want to look down at your urine and see a different color. It was kind of bluish green, you know, I guess the green because of the yellow, right? But anyways, you see it coming out as well. But go ahead, any further comments just on what we just saw?
Yeah, I mean, you saw it there. I'll just talk. It's hard to miss the methylene blue. It really is blue, and it absolutely turns most people's urine either blue and or green.
Yeah.
You know, I'd just like to zoom out a little bit and just recognize that the whole reason we eat food and breathe air is so that we can get, or most of the reason we eat food is to get electrons from food and to get oxygen from air. And those two things come together, and in the electron transport chain, which is part of the mitochondria.
That's where we make energy. It's how we make ATP, right?
Exactly. And ATP is like, that's the goal. That's the goal. If a cell has enough ATP, that is its energy, then it has the ability to heal or maintain health or heal from disease.
By the way,
so that's the whole goal.
One of my 5 R's of how you fix a cell and how you even detox a cell. R number 3 is restoring cellular energy, and it's all about that vital ATP. So this donates electrons right in that chain.
Yeah. So I haven't heard anybody else use this analogy, but how I use this analogy of a freeway, and the freeway has an on-ramp, and the freeway is the electron transport chain. And by the way, I should just say every cell in our body, except for red blood cells, has hundreds or thousands of mitochondria in them, the little furnace, the little energizers of the body of the cells, right? And our brain has more mitochondria than anywhere else. It's right. By far. And so methylene blue is most useful for the neurological system. Just say that. Now, the analogy that I want to go back to is the freeway is your electron transport chain. And let's picture a freeway at midnight where there's some cars on it, but there's also plenty of space. And methylene blue comes in and adds electrons, which are the cars. So it adds electrons to the electron transport chain. And ozone adds in the ozone oxygen therapy adds in oxygen to the on-ramp. And so now we're all the cars can go 65 miles an hour, but it's noon now. So there's more cars on the freeway. We're adding in energy to the system, to the electron transport chain. And then we'll kind of touch on it now because it's appropriate, but then photons, light, are really just little packets of photons, and the photons come in and just pizzazz those little electrons up and that oxygen up, and suddenly your cars that were going 65 miles an hour are literally going 75, 85 miles an hour. So it's just like, and all of that, the photons from the light, the electrons from the methylene blue, and the oxygen from the ozone oxygen therapy are all coming together to create more ATP.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's why it's so darn powerful. I mean, honestly, And that is, it's supercharging the system. It really is. And the immune system and everything. I want to add, and we're blessed because John Lawrence, who we interviewed last week or the last episode, he has a product, because some people are sitting there going, okay, I want this so bad, but I can't go to California yet, right? Or whatever. But John developed Lumitol Blue, which is a way via suppository or liposomal oral to get some methylene blue in the system. So, just so you know, we'll provide that link from last week so you can actually get that at home and experience the amazing power of methylene blue. But putting it in this supercharged system, if you have an illness, something going on, I think you should fly to California and get this treatment. I think it's absolutely incredible. Okay, so methylene blue, as I have read, was actually developed as a dye, right? I mean, they were using it in the textile industry. And then you might know the story better than I do, but someone discovered that it kills malaria. And it was used for that. And then, of course, we went on to discover that, hey, it goes across the blood-brain barrier and it's good for neurodegenerative conditions and all these wonderful things. So kind of tell that methylene blue story.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that brings up the other, not just is it a great electron donor, but it's a great germicidal. It kills bacteria, it kills viruses, it kills malaria, right? It's also been used, actually, I want to say it's on the World Health Organization's list of essential medications, actually. It's used a lot for urinary tract infections. Mm-hmm. It is almost 100% excreted into the kidneys, which is why you end up with some blue-green urine afterwards. But when it's in the bladder, it actually acts as a pro-oxidant. So adding some red light therapy over your lower abdomen, kind of pelvic area where the bladder is, after doing some methylene blue, can cure UTIs even. It has been, I know some doctors are using nebulized methylene blue for the virus that shall not be named. Yeah. It can be used topically. You can actually inject it intradermally for cancerous lesions and then shine light on it to activate that methylene blue. And it actually acts as a pro-oxidant at that point to destroy the cancer cells. So there's a lot of mechanisms and it's completely safe. I mean, when I'm thinking about therapies, it's what can I use? How much potential benefit is there for how much potential downside is there? And with methylene blue, you can use, there's almost a linear progression of how useful. So the more you use, the better, all the way up to something along the lines of 200 to 400 milligrams. So every bit you're using up until that point is actually useful, and it's actually more useful than just a lower dose. There's almost no side effects from it until you get into doses that are way higher than 400 milligrams. All the potential side effects that you might read about online, if you Google it, happen with over 1,000 milligrams. So that's an important thing, because nowadays you can go on Google and you'll get this list of potential reactions. Well, yeah, those are potential reactions, but they only happen at mega doses that honestly nobody has business doing.
I've read some great studies on that they're doing right now for dementia, Alzheimer's. I mean, I think it's expanding, at least in what they're realizing that it's so helpful for. Why is it? I mean, I can, imagine why, but you could help us. Why is it so darn good for the brain?
I think it's because it just is adding in energy to the system. It's adding in energy. Again, you're adding in electrons to the electron transport chain, which makes the ATP in your mitochondria, which there's hundreds and thousands of those mitochondria in every neuron. And so then when your cell has enough energy, it can then do the cleaning out. It can clean out the plaque. It can do its job. Again, it balances the immune system that actually is in our brain, right? You suddenly have enough energy to drain the brain of all the junk in there. Yeah. So, again, there's more mitochondria in the brain and in the neurons than anywhere else in the body. So it makes sense that it would be so dang useful. And you're absolutely right. There are some studies coming out about how it's beneficially affecting dementia. Yeah. And this is interesting too. I was thinking about this just yesterday. It would actually be really useful for someone who had early onset dementia, especially, to be using their memory while getting a drip of IV methylene blue. Because again, it's the part of the brain that gets activated is going to be the part that needs more energy. And so, because the methylene blue will be used by whichever part of the brain is being activated the most in the current time. So there's a lot of potential uses, I think, that actually aren't being used quite yet. So I look forward to the future of methylene.
Yeah, no, and you had said, I mean, you did the same brain scan that you did on me before and after on someone else. I can't recall though, and the difference was profound. I mean, again, my brain, thank God, right, is functioning normal, but I don't remember the story there.
Yeah, I mean, we've done it on a few patients where we've kind of done this before and after, and you can see, again, your baseline is like up here compared to the average person. The average person that comes into our office is, you know, down here. They're like my mom, for instance.
Challenged.
Actually, I did this on my mom. They're challenged healing wise. They're challenged. And so you do this brain scan beforehand and then after, and you can just see the voltage on the surface of the brain and how it just lights up. So again, it's like, it's proof that this is just adding in so much potential energy into the system / the brain, which I like the brain to have lots of energy.
We all do. Now, again, you know, virus unmentioned, obviously it would have a great impact on that. Are people waking up to this? I mean, like, you know, one of my frustrations with this whole thing is, you know, we're focused on one thing that I'm sure certain companies, drug companies, are making a lot of money with. And yet there's these amazing other treatments that nobody's talking about. I mean, why isn't this getting out?
Yeah, I wish it was. That's why we're doing this right now, to get this out. You know, I love the procedure that we've built at Oasis Family Medicine. I hope more practitioners hear about this and start doing it themselves. I mean, we need this. We need to build more of a momentum. I believe if everyone was doing O3D Energizer in the ER, gosh, over the last year plus, like because we've seen patients, we've seen what they walk into, how they are when they walk into our office in severe conditions where they would be admitted in the ER to the hospital and walk out so much better. And we have not, you know, I don't want to get into that discussion more than we should, but we've done perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, I think your clinic would be a great test clinic because you have very immune challenged people there. So I would argue that, wow, you probably had a lot of people do horribly with this virus because these are the people who don't do well. How did you all perform?
Yeah, again, perfectly. I mean, not one single hospitalization.
That's
for
pretty
anyone who anyone who actually followed the protocol that I suggested to them. Not one single person even went to the hospital over the last year and a half.
Right. Yeah. Of course, you have outliers, just in the sense that, you know, they didn't follow the protocol, you know, for one reason or another. Who knows? But yeah. Okay. Well, I would have thought that would be the case. Honestly, you know, it's amazing that we have such a simple procedure. And again, I mean, I think if you're someone who got challenged, or even maybe you're in a state what we call long haulers, this would be oh my gosh, incredible. How does it work? I mean, people that have like a lot of chronic pain, how do you find doing this would work for them, and what have you found?
Let me think back. We've definitely had some people. I know we've had one person with rheumatoid arthritis, another person with an undiagnosed autoimmune joint pain issue. Just right off the top of my head, I mean, they've self-reported back to us. So this is without us even calling them, hey, how did you do? They self-reported back that I mean, one of them was like, best they felt in 10 years, I think. Another one was like, hey, I can move my fingers again. So it absolutely, again, when you add enough energy into the system, we can balance out that inflammation, right? Inflammation is a beautiful thing. When you're being exposed to an infection, we need to actually create little oxidative bursts and inflammation and to do the killing off, but we don't want to get too revved up because then it turns into a problem.
Right. before I forget, give your clinic name and how they find you, because I'm sure there are people who want to come and experience. You do a lot of great things, but go ahead and share that.
Yeah, so we're Oasis Family Medicine. We're in Glendale, and our website is dryoshi.com. So my first name, Dr. Yoshi, YOSHI.com, and just give us a call.
And we'll Ashley will make sure that gets put up. Yeah, close to the Burbank Airport, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
super simple, super
Yeah,
easy.
do not
airport.
fly into LA. Okay, that,
No.
that was a mistake. I did that. Yeah, no, don't do that. Yeah, Burbank right there. Yeah, super close. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure many people come. And again, we'll put up Dr. John Lawrence. We'll put up the link to get the oral or suppository version of the methylene blue up as well. But if you're someone who's challenged, I think you need to do the whole system. I really,
Yeah. And I'll just give a shout out to him and his product. It's top notch.
yeah.
As well.
John's been a good friend for many years as well. On the methylene blue topic, right? You think about something like this. It almost is like one of those things that seem too good to be true. I think that if I was a viewer, that's what I'd be thinking. Wait a minute, it kills infections, viruses. I read it's amazing for fungus, Candida. I read that. Yeah, and obviously has an effect on parasites. I mean, the list goes on. Oh gosh, it upregulates cellular energy via the electron transport chain. It has an effect on the brain, knocks down bad immunity, puts up good immunity. I mean, come on, man, where's this stuff been? How come we've never heard of it? I heard of it some years ago, but I heard of it in a different context. It seems like as of the last couple of years, it's gotten more popularity, but where's it been? What's going on?
I don't know. Sorry, I apologize for that noise there. That's the dump truck doing its job, taking out the cellular garbage.
Yeah, kind of what methylene blue does. That's what I'm amazed by. And with this whole process, the O3D energizer process, that's the garbage truck in the background.
Exactly. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things I could say. I think it has more to do with politics than it does medicine. It certainly has nothing to do with healing, because anybody who's interested in actually healing or helping other people heal would be promoting methylene blue. Again, it's like there's almost no downside, just this huge potential upside. I don't want to promote it as a magic bullet. I have yet to meet a magic bullet that cures everything, and so it's not that it's going to heal everybody's every disease, but boy, it sure does an amazing job.
I know. That's why I had to pull back and think, what would I be thinking if I was watching this? Oh my gosh, it seems like it's not, right? Nothing is, of course, right? I mean, you're talking to two people who really understand getting to the cause. Is really the key to all healing. However, man, this could really be a game changer, for so many and so many conditions. What is the advantage? I mean, it is easier to do, say, a suppository or a nasal. I think John developed a nasal product too. I don't recall.
I know he has the suppository. I know he has the oral liposomal version, which if you're going to do an oral version, the liposomal version is the way to go.
Yeah, I would think. But anyways, obviously there's obvious advantages to putting a bolus in the IV or running it through a system. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's just a way to bypass getting broken down. It's a way to get it quicker to where it needs to go without getting sidetracked. Again, rectal absorption is great. You can take the liposomal version, it's great. But there's nothing as useful as doing something intravenously. It's straight in the blood. It's going to go straight where it needs to be most. Again, remember, the methylene blue literally tracks to where it needs to go the most, where your most diseased state is. And so that's the beauty of it. We can also, we're doing the light therapy at the same time as the IV. So we're literally running your methylene blue that gets joined up with the blood, and then it gets the light on it, and then it gets the UVA, UVB, UVC, whole light spectrum, and then the red light right after it goes into you. So we're really putting the light into it directly onto basically every molecule of methylene blue gets lit up during this procedure. And so that's why this procedure, doing it intravenously, is probably a little bit better. It's going to be more effective, but certainly if you don't have access to this, doing it intravenously, then you want to get it via some other route.
Yeah, and I think the ozone combination with it, and
I mean, that's the powerful part, right? That's why this particular therapy is so useful, because again, we're kind of getting at the energy from multiple different directions, right? Different mechanisms of action. And so that's what I've been working with over the last year and a half, is just how can we maximize the energy, right? We don't want to be duplicating what we're already doing. We want to kind of fill in the other spots that we can get to.
Yeah, look, I mean, I asked the question, I think when I was there, I mean, how many people are doing this? And you said humbly, I think we're the only ones, maybe not, who knows, but I think we're the only ones doing it. I think you are, but like you said, who knows? People will quickly copy. But right now, I can tell you, it is, I think, a procedure that so many people need. Just because you're stacking energy. I read that just by adding the red light at like 660 to the methylene blue makes it 4 times the effectiveness. So here you are doing that, plus the other light treatments, and then, like I said, the ozone on top of that. And you gave me an injection of the NAD, which is like, again, now I know that this whole process increases NAD by itself, and then you kind of stack it on the outside, which NAD, just kind of a refresher on NAD, why would you add that at the end?
I mean, again, we're getting at how do we give you energy from multiple different methods?
Stacking energy. Yeah, because NAD is part of that whole process in the mitochondria. It makes sense.
Yeah. Now, if you want to get really into the weeds of it, so methylene blue actually acts with NAD.
Yeah.
To create that electron. So there's a rhyme and a reason to us giving you the NAD, but ultimately it's just about stacking different methods to get the energy.
Well, I'll tell you, for me, it's like, it's worth a plane trip, folks, because it's transformative. And I know you do, and I'll give you a chance to talk about some other things you do in your office. You do some incredible regenerative joint stuff, but talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we do prolozone, which again, there's a lot of nutrients in the prolozone, but the main thing is ozone. And so those are great for joint pains, tissue, muscle, ligament pains. We do other stem cells, exosomes, amniotic. We do a lot of the regenerative therapies. We do a lot of other IVs as well. It's not just this is not the only IV that we do. We do a lot of other IVs, kind of the run of the mill. But I also love IV Plaquex. So that's a phosphatidylcholine.
Oh, I love that.
I find that, I think that combined with the ozone, the O3D, that's just, I mean, gosh, I wish this was used in more places for more patients.
Yes. I'm coming back. Remind me to get the, I mean, I absolutely love phosphatidylcholine. It's one of those things for your cell membranes and your brain that's just, transformative as well. Any last words? I'll give it to you. And I do so appreciate you taking the time out of your day, coming on and, just wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, we also do the brain mapping and neurofeedback. Again, just my interest in the neuroanatomy, how the nervous system works, again, just because of my brother and my dad, mainly. So those are some other services, but, ultimately, I just want to thank you again for putting out this information. I would welcome practitioners reaching out. I think this is something that the world deserves to know more about. And I look forward to continual innovation in the healing space for the betterment of humanity.
So, amen to that. And give your website one more time, Dr. Yoshi.
So it's dryoshi.com or dryoshi.com.
Pretty simple. Thanks, Doc. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Hey, I want to tell you about one of our sponsors, Cyto Detox. Look, podcasts cost money. There's a lot of production going around this, but we are grateful to have Cyto Detox as one of the sponsors. It's so easy for me to talk about the product because myself and my family use it constantly as we practice what I preach. For over 15 years, I've talked about and taught doctors and the public about cellular detox. And I'll tell you, Cyto was a breakthrough. Cyto was a breakthrough for us. And it's changed so many lives. So we're grateful that they sponsor Cellular Healing TV. It makes sense, doesn't it? They should.
If you're listening to this podcast and want to access the amazing Cyto Detox product Dr. Pompa just mentioned, please visit detoxoffer.com. Again, that's detoxoffer.com. Well, that's it for this week. The materials and content within this podcast are intended as general information only and are not to be considered a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you would like to purchase some of the supplements mentioned on this show, please visit the site asseenonchtv.com and use the code CHTV15 for 15% off. Again, that's asseenonchtv.com. Use the code CHTV15 for 15% off. And as always, thanks for listening.